There's a lot of interesting Nintendo Switch news floating around right now, but 8 inches is too big. I can't ignore it. Legitimately, 8 inches feels huge in this era. 8 inches feels like maybe even too big. 8 inches, though, is what we're about to handle. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Good morning, Mario. Good morning, Switch fans. We're talking all about the newest details on Nintendo's next console. This just popped about an hour ago, and so I have to bring you the latest. Let me know what you think in the comments down below about 8 inches. Now, 8 inches would be bigger than everything. The Nintendo Switch screen, the OLED screen, is 7 inches. The Steam Deck screen is 7 inches. The Asus ROG Ally, 7 inches. An 8-inch screen would be big. Would it be better, though? That's the question. Now, this comes from Nate Drake, who has weighed in a podcast format on the latest from Nintendo Switch 2. If you didn't see, I posted a video last night about VGC and Eurogamer effectively giving us the first official leak that Nintendo Switch 2 will be launching late 2024 and will be a hybrid console once again, and development kits are out with third parties. Now, Nate Drake has been a reliable and long-standing leaker in the Nintendo Switch community, and I feel like he's very cautious in terms of he says things when he knows them, and he waits and is very, he's restrained, and I like that about him, and I think it adds a lot to his credibility. But Nate Drake says he has been told that multiple developers knew about dev kits. He's heard this last week and the last few weeks that multiple developers have said, yeah, dev kits are out there. This is a thing. He's corroborating on VGC and on Eurogamer's report. He also says that he's heard chatter that production will begin in Q1 of next year. That means January, February, and March are when the factories will really start speeding up, cooking up, and those Switch 2s will be going into the oven for baking. Now, they're going to be baking apparently an 8-inch screen. He says that this is not for sure, but he calls it informed speculation based on what he's heard, that Nintendo Switch 2 will launch with an 8-inch LCD screen. No more OLED, and we can debate that all you want. LCD on the ROG Ally looks pretty darn good. OLED is brilliant on Switch OLED, but 8-inch LCD screen. So this is going to extend the Switch. We're assuming that the Joy-Con will be changed in some way, but the Switch form factor itself, it seems, is going to change with an 8-inch screen. Now, I am all for a bigger screen. I don't think you can go too much bigger, though, because whether you're holding a Switch or a Steam Deck or an ROG Ally, they are pretty big. You got to hold this thing and you're like, okay, my hands are spread. It feels perfect. 8 inches might feel a little off, especially after an entire generation, the better part of a decade, playing at 7 inches. But I'm excited about 8 inches because it shows that Nintendo is not only just upgrading the internals, but they're looking to upgrade the actual unit itself, right? The external performance, the external appearance, the external experience. I think that's really awesome, and I'm excited for a bigger screen. If you're gonna be Nintendo Switch 2, you better be the best, biggest, coolest screen on the market, and this would allow them to surpass the screens already out there and say, yo, we got the biggest screen. Now, some people with more in-depth video knowledge than me are analyzing okay, what is going to be the pixel count on a 8-inch screen versus a 7-inch screen? How is that going to impact fidelity? How is that going to impact clarity? That stuff, TBD. And I think we'd really need to wait until Nintendo actually announces and confirms the specs of the system for us to know, what is this 8 inches really going to mean, except a lot to handle. We're going to have to hold this 8-inch screen and Joy-Con on the side, making this system quite large. I will let you know that the Steam Deck is 7 inches, and then these are far wider than Joy-Con. So it's basically going to be around this size, I would guess, but more of it will just be screen, and I'm assuming less of it will be controller. In fact, if you have any of those sort of larger slide-on controllers, whether you're using the Hori model, where it's the Split Pad Pro, or I recently showed off and showcased the NYXI Wizard, where those go on the side, I feel like that would be more the size that we're looking at for Nintendo Switch 2 with an 8-inch screen. Now, Nate Drake says that he has heard chatter as well about a fairly significant amount of internal memory. He's saying that he's heard, informed speculation again, that 512 gigabytes is the ceiling that we're looking at. That the Switch 2 could have 512 of storage. Now, that's a humongous uptick. We're talking 32 gigs for Switch 1, all the way up to potentially 512 on Switch 2. This just goes to show you how much bigger the games will be once they implement and bring in a more modern standard of visual fidelity and performance. So even if this thing goes 256, we're talking about nearly a 10 times multiplier on the storage and up to like a 17, 18 times multiplier. I think 512 sounds really good. A terabyte goes very quickly on PlayStation 5, but I think Nintendo will work with developers and ensure that the games are not super bloated. I mean, they're able to condense their first-party titles insanely well, so if they can keep things around, say, like 50 gigabytes, then you're looking at being able to have 10 games digitally downloaded without needing a memory card, and that feels really good. Now, if they're able to support the Switch 2 at the same memory card standards as Switch 1, you can throw a terabyte memory card in there, boom, we're in business. That's what I've got going on the Steam Deck, and it's fantastic to have the onboard storage and an extra terabyte you'll never want. It'll be, well, you might eventually, depending on how big the games get, but it gives you a lot. A terabyte on the Switch could go forever. A terabyte on the Steam Deck is just a lot. They also say that there is going to be a card format change so that the game cartridge will change format a bit. And this makes sense because if they're going to be a lot bigger, that game cartridge is going to need to support that. Currently, I think we're at like 32 gigs is the biggest cartridge that Nintendo Switch currently has, and that will definitely not cut it. And it really is a good thing to increase the internal storage and change the card format so that we don't have codes in the boxes. That's one of the biggest bummers in Nintendo Switch land right now. You get a third-party port and it's just a code, right? Like, oh, Batman Arkham Asylum is on the cart, but City and Night are going to be downloadable, right? Or nothing is on the cart. It's just a blank, empty game case with a slip of paper that says, like, you've won a prize, input this code and you'll get it. And there's nothing wrong with digital downloads, but when you're buying a physical game, I think the expectation is that you get a physical game. And we should get a physical game. And this internal storage uptick and this card format change will allow Nintendo to actually do that and not rely on things like game download codes and the disastrous cloud. In fact, I hope the cloud goes away for Switch 2. I hope there are no cloud versions on Switch 2 whatsoever. And with increased power and increased storage, I don't think we should be dealing with any sort of cloud version. Now, on the podcast, MVG was there as well. He has been someone who's recently said, like, he doesn't know if Switch 2 will be backwards compatible. He now says that he thinks they will solve the issue of backwards compatibility and allow for backwards compatibility, but he has no new info himself. He also believes that, Nate also believes that they will wait till the fiscal year ends before they announce it. He does say it could be any time, but he believes they'll wait till after March 2024 to announce it. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I've seen some things pop up about announcements soon, and if it is indeed late 2024, which is what we're going with, no, there's no way they announce it soon. They're not going to announce it over a year before it releases and sabotage upcoming games and system sales. Also, companies just don't do that. They're not going to pre-announce their hardware. I suppose they could say we're working on the next successor to Nintendo Switch, but they're not going to go out of their way to show this off anytime soon. I think waiting till after March makes the most sense, and if you asked me, I would predict a June reveal of this system. I think next year around the big summer Games Palooza, not E3 time, that will be when Nintendo does dive into full details on, hey, here's the system coming out. Now, Nate also says that he thinks it could be a September-October launch to line up with Switch Lite or Switch OLED, as opposed to the traditional November launch we see with PlayStation, Xbox, and in the past some Nintendo consoles. November is usually when you launch before Black Friday, and as the holiday shopping season really heats up, September or October would be exciting because it's just another month or two sooner. But the biggest deal here is the 8-inch screen. What do you think about Switch 2 getting not only internal upgrades and modifications, but external changes as well, including the biggest handheld screen for one of these like major consoles on the market? By that time, we could have other competitors, but right now, 7-inch ROG Ally, 7-inch Steam Deck, 7-inch Switch, 8-inch, it's a lot. And how do you feel about Nintendo upping the storage to 512 gigabytes? I think that would be really nice and a really big uptick and a really guarantee that, hey, we're going to be supporting far bigger games and you're going to be downloading much larger things than Tears of the Kingdom 2 on your Switch. We're talking like 80 gig downloads, so please get those Wi-Fi standards up really high so that we're able to get these things quickly. My Switch is still my slowest downloading system. I would love an uptick if we're going to have that much in terms of game size and file size download. But let me know what you think of all Nate's new info. This just adds the piece of the puzzle together, and he does say that he thinks there's going to be a lot of chatter coming up and a lot more leaks, as I talked about yesterday, that hey, we've got Gamescom, we're going to get more developers talking about this, maybe more leaks. I don't expect any pictures or anything of that caliber, but more details on what's going on, timelines, and maybe even some games that are being worked on. So let me know what your take is in the comments down below. Right? Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Until next time, SwitchForce out.